Welcome back. Today we will be learning our topic, limited companies and multinationals. Okay. There you go, limited companies and multinationals. So what are limited companies and multinationals? They are incorporated businesses. They have separate legal identity from their owners, can own resources, form contracts, employ people, can sue and can be sued, taken over or liquidated. They have limited liability. Businesses raise capital by selling shares. The shareholders elect directors to run the company. A board of directors headed by chairperson accountable to shareholders should run the company as per the shareholders' wish. If the company performs badly, the directors will be voted out at an annual general meeting. So, in this annual general meeting, the directors will be elected, and if the performance is bad, then they will be voted out. Next, firming limited companies must have a minimum of 2 members, but there is no upper limit. Before a limited company can be formed, 2 most important documents have to be submitted to the registrar of the companies. The Memorandum of Association, also known as the MOA, and Article of Association, also known as the AOA. If these documents are acceptable, then the company will receive a certificate of incorporation, which is a permission to trade as a limited company. The shareholders have a legal right to attend the AGM or the annual general meeting and must be told of the date and avenue in writing. Now let's discuss further about what are MOA and AOA. To start off, what is an MOA? Memorandum of Association. This sets out the constitution and gives the details of the company. It has the name of the company, name and address of the company's registered office, objectives of the company and nature of its activities, amount of capital to be raised and number of shares to be issued. So in point 3 is something that the government will compulsorily check, because if the company is producing more pollution, if it's a factory, then they might have to do some other checks as well, or limit how much pollution should be created by that company, and they have to see if the company is beneficial to the people or not, or how are the effects of the company. So this third point is very important. Objectives of the company and the nature of its activities. Next is the Article of Association, also known as the AOA. This document deals with the internal running of the company. The article states the rights of the shareholders depending on the type of shares they hold, procedures for appointing directors, length of time directors should serve before re-election. It's like normal elections that happen in India, that every minister or somebody who is in the government will change every 5 years, will be re-elected. So that is the length of time directors should serve before re-election. Timing and frequency of the company's meetings. Arrangements for auditing company accounts. Auditing company accounts is when a chartered accountant of the company checks the company's accounts, its transfers of money. Next, private limited companies. There are 2 types of limited companies, private limited companies and public limited companies. Private limited companies tend to be small or medium size. Small minority are large. Their names end in limited or LTD. Shares cannot be on the stock market and must be traded privately from one individual to another. Often family businesses and owned by family members or close friends. The directors of these firms tend to be shareholders and are involved in running the business. Okay, next. What are the advantages and disadvantages of private limited companies? Advantages say that shareholders have limited liability, more capital must be raised, businesses continues if shareholders die, has more status in the public. Disadvantages say that financial information must be made public, costs money and takes time to set up, profits are shared between more members, takes time to transfer shares to new owner, cannot raise huge amounts of money like PLCs. PLCs means public limited companies, an abbreviation. And it takes time to transfer shares to new owner because it is done privately. Next, public limited companies. Going public is also said like that. Going public can be expensive. The company needs a lawyer to ensure that the prospectus is legally correct. The prospectus must be printed and circulated. A bank may be paid to process the share applications. If the company's shares are not sold, the company will hire an underwriter who helps them sell the unsold shares. The prospectus here is a document that states how many shares they are buying from a particular company. So they have to submit this prospectus to the company, and then a lawyer has to ensure that it is legally correct and it doesn't have any errors. And then these all come under it. Next, advantages and disadvantages of public limited companies. Advantages say that large amounts of capital can be raised, shareholders have limited liability, they can exploit economies of scale, may be able to dominate the market, shares can be bought and sold easily. Just to recap, limited liability means the owner can only give the money which was originally invested in the business if the company is in debts. Now, disadvantages. Disadvantages say that setting up costs can be expensive, outsiders can take control by buying shares, more financial information must be made public, maybe more remote from customers, more regulatory control owing to Companies Act, managers may take control rather than owners. Next, multinational companies. They have become very important in the recent history. Multinational company is a large business with significant production or service operation in at least 2 different countries apart from the home country. Home country means the country where it was originally started. Examples: McDonald's, Toyota, Coca-Cola, Burger King, etc. Next, the features of multinational companies. They have huge assets and turnover, extremely well resourced and can often afford to take on large scale contracts and projects that many other firms cannot cope up with as they have huge assets and turnover. Highly qualified and experienced professional executives and managers. Since they are huge, they can afford to hire the very best people from all over the world for their operations. Powerful advertising and marketing capability. They can invest huge amounts of money in impressive advertising campaigns to outcome smaller rivals. If they are marketing more impressively, like Coca-Cola, they show with so much of emotion, enthusiasm while drinking it. That will improve the sales of the product. So they can do that very effectively. Highly advanced and up-to-date technology. They can afford to keep right up to date with the technological development, which helps them with more efficient production and work. If instead of labor in a factory, if they are robots, then the work can be done more efficiently and more quickly. Then having labor. So they can do that because they have huge assets and turnover. So they can be highly advanced and up to date with technology. Next, highly influential both economically and politically. They can be very powerful and even can influence in government decision making. Very efficient since they can exploit economies of scale. As they are so huge, they have the ability to reduce their costs significantly and can buy huge amounts of raw materials more cheaply. Ownership and control is centered in the host country. The control of the company is nearly always held in its home country where it started. This means that all profits are always returned to the home country. Next, now we are talking about economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. So just a brief explanation. Economies of scale is financial advantages of falling of average costs of producing something in very large quantities. Diseconomies of scale means rising of average costs when a firm becomes too big. Large firms can usually produce more cheaply goods that small firms cannot. The size of a firm has an important effect on the average cost of production. This is because of the economies of scale. This is a brief explanation of economies of scale because we talked about economies of scale in the advantages and disadvantages of public limited companies. We will learn that in detail in our next videos. Bye for now.